Good afternoon to everybody. Being back within the walls of the old building there, the CDE building, after 34 years, 34, that's long enough. After 34 years, and recognizing most of the details, even in the house, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and the dining rooms, I think it's a testimony of the magnificent trick that the mind can play. When you are away, you do not see these things, but 34 years later you come, and the bed looks the same, the bathroom looks the same. Financial constraints. But anyway, we are grateful for this invitation, and we are certainly honored to be given this opportunity to make a few comments on a subject that, in my view, and from what we've heard all of last night and a little bit today, a subject that was introduced primarily to deal with a set of structural and disequilibrium challenges in Latin America. It was put together to deal with disequilibrium challenges and structural challenges in Latin America with its own characteristics, which later on found itself beyond the boundaries of Latin America. We would like to also say that this particular subject matter was one of those subject matters in the literature that was subjected to a lot of misunderstanding, as well as a series of hard-nosed debates. And what was interesting about it, both the misunderstanding and the debates were amongst those who oppose it, as well as those who defended it. That makes it peculiar. I propose something, and somewhere in while I'm defending it, I still have a lot of doubts and misunderstanding of the issues. It is also a subject which has been discarded by many right from its inception. And as the debate went on, it was sort of discarded. And lately, that ranks of people who discarding this subject matter begin to grow and begin to swallow up even the inventor, the person who invented the concept or the terminology, Williamson. 2000, he had the opportunity of reflecting a little bit more on this when he addressed the World Bank panel that was putting together the 2000 World Development Report. And let me just quote what John said at that time. Quote, 10 years ago, I invented the term Washington Consensus. The term, not a process, not a concept, the term Washington Consensus. While it is jolly to become famous by inventing a term that reverberates around the world, I have long been doubtful as to whether the phrase that I coined served to advance the cause of rational economic policy making, unquote. 2000. He made this as an input into the development, the debate that was going on around the preparation of the World Development Report. What I would like to do, Mr. Chair, very quickly, is to just talk about what is troubling about this term. I'm using term because that's what he said. But even if I took it beyond term, I will include process and include prescriptions. What is troubling about it? What are those troubling issues as they relate particularly to our developing world? And I want to even narrow my developing world to Africa. And then later on, I might want to touch as I close on a couple of messages that I think that will evolve or that have evolved from the debate, the both sides of the debate. With respect to the question of the troubling issues, there were two critical points. One, how applicable were the prescriptions to our development needs and development requirements? Two, even if they were applicable, how suitable are these descriptions? This was the test of it from our perspective. On the question of applicability, the issue was, are the prescriptions sufficient? Are they necessary? Are they both sufficient and necessary? That is the debate within our own context. As a set, are they sufficient? And if sufficient, are they necessary? The second big question that floated around this thing, can the prescriptions be interpreted as one cast in stone, or should it be flexible? These were the cornerstone of the debate as it went beyond the Latin American framework. I presume some of these issues came up, including the Latin American framework, but certainly in terms of our part of the world, it was a question of should they be considered as something cast in stone, or should they allow for flexibilities and adjustments? So it is within this first set of issues that I think this shift towards moving this debate where it is finding itself now, getting outside of the terminology and disappearing from the literature, in effect, as we go along, came into play. On the question of suitability, the first one that I talked about is this whole question of applicability. But on the question of suitability, again, you both mentioned it right now. Is it a one-size-fits-all prescription? That dose for the med to heal us, to heal our economic wounds and whatever, is that dose one-size-fits-all? You give the same malaria pill to Latin America, you give the same malaria pill to Africa and to Eastern Europe and Asia. Or this prescription, are they adaptable? You see, is it something that is just there, one set, or is it adaptable? And could the prescription themselves be mixed with other prescriptions? Can I take a vitamin tablet and what else? An aspirin? Or should I just take aspirin as prescribed by those who were proponents of the consensus? What were the side effects if I just took that dose? These were the issues, Mr. Chairman, that I thought were creating doubts in our minds. And as we saw the results, and I think that was mentioned last night, this result of destabilization, both not only in the economies, in the fundamentals of the economies, but destabilization even at the political level and the institutional level. And then breeding with them the inequalities. So what was there to solve a poverty or solve whatever problem led into these destabilizations and inequality issues. Having said that, though, there are some strong messages that we can take home. And when I kept thinking about those strong messages, particularly for us, the developing countries, it can help guide us. Us here have different levels. There are a set of countries that are post-conflicts. They have conflicts, and they are recuperating from those conflicts, where institutions, policies, structures were all dismantled like in the case of Liberia, where I come from, and many other countries. Now, in that context, what kind of lessons we can take away that have derived out of this debate and take it beyond the debate? So rather than debating the validity of the argument, let's debate some of the things. Let me tell you what I just put here. I said, picking and taking home some of the goodies from the basket. The consensus is a basket. Can we go in there, look around in that basket, pick a couple of good things out of it, polish it, readjust it, and make some headway with it? That's a challenge. Because out of those 10 things that are listed in that basket, we see 2. I see 2. I see the formulation and implementation of sound fiscal policies. I think that's a good piece of apple in there. We can pick it up, because if we pick it up and we sort of adjust it and polish it up and do what we need to do, it could help us deal with our redistributive efforts, redistributive effects where the impact on poverty reduction agenda will be advanced, and certainly our development process will be consolidated. We can also see out of that basket, which is sound fiscal policies, the question of accountability. I mean, you have people, resources to manage as a government. You have to be accountable. You have to put in place the necessary processes, institutions, guidelines to be able to effectively deal with accountability. And with that, you can ensure the maximum utilization of your natural resources and your country's resources, which includes your human as well. So we can see that in that process. The second thing I see when you get in there, you want those good apples, is increasing investment in education, health, and infrastructure. What was interesting is that these were in the basket of those 10, but there was very little attention paid to that one. So if we were to measure the results over time of the consensus period, and we say how much results have we derived from investment in education, health, and infrastructure, we will have a very poor scorecard. And so, but we need to take that out. We need to polish it a little bit. We need to realign it depending on where you are in your circumstances. And we think that's a very good apple we should go home with. Having done that, we need to adjust as we go along the way. We can't be stuck. It cannot be static. We have to adjust the process as we go. That means, for many of us, we will have to learn, for example, from the Chinese model. If you look at the Chinese model, and there's a lot have been said and a lot written in the literature, and I think we can still go there and see how you can really come up with policies, industrial policies, whatever, within your own constraints, and make progress and move a whole number of people out of poverty. So it's something we need to look at. Finally, he's telling me I got 5 minutes. But instead, I have 5 minutes according to, okay. Finally, we must find the political will. We here, again, I'm in my region, must find the political will to integrate those parts that are doable within our today's development strategic frameworks. First, we are players in the core of these Washington institutions. When I was being introduced, I was introduced as one of the things said was I'm the executive director for 22 countries around the board of directors within the World Bank. That means we are members of that club. That organization has something for which members benefit. So we cannot stay on the periphery. We have to engage ourselves to make sure that we play and we play effectively. Secondly, we must maximize our returns from belonging, and we should intensify our contribution to the operations of these institutions. So it's going back in the basket, picking what's there good for us, realign it with the bank's own programming and everything, and we maximize our returns and benefits. So, Mr. Chairman, my submission here is as follows. One, the debate for and against has settled down. Two, all the prescriptions are not that bad for advancing structural transformation of a developing country. Three, we need to go into the basket, pick some of the good and manageable apples or prescriptions, brush them up where needed, and incorporate them into our development frameworks as applicable. And finally, four, we are players in the institutions that gave birth to the consensus. And what we need to do is to strategically position ourselves to maximize or participate in the benefits from those institutions, such as the IMF and the World Bank. Thank you very much.